We're now recording.
Really? Such a fucking asshole. God damn it, Jerry.
Well, look, so something happened here, and
So how much did we get?
Why are you in charge of the buttons?
Right.
because no one else knows how to do it.
Also, you see those splash patterns on there? That's his beer from midget wrestling.
It's coffee, probably.
No, it was definitely your beer.
Could be the fecal matter from your coffee cups.
On behalf of the No Direction podcast, I would like to extend an apology to Jeremy Buck.
So did we get none of that?
No.
Oh, it was so good.
Oh, I know it was. Can we
revisit it.
We have to.
We have to revisit it.
Do you remember your questions?
It's
Yes.
we're Erin.
I'll answer like I pretend. I'll pretend I didn't already answer.
Yeah, we got to get that shot down. Holy shit!
It's
I'm so sorry.
so much better the first time. It's fine.
That's what. Never mind.
So
Yeah,
that's
I know.
Jamie Worley.
Why don't you welcome everybody
Producer
to the Daggum
extraordinaire.
podcast?
Welcome
Oh
to
my
the
God.
No Direction podcast, where we talk about nothing and quite often forget to press the record button. I'm Erin Beggs. This is my co-host, Jamie Worley, the one, the only, the greatest non-button pusher of all times. And then we have our special guest, Jeremy Buck from JB Makes. He makes stuff, mostly out of wood, makes gorgeous cutting boards. I've seen many of them. I love them. And I wanted to plug your business there, but I'm really actually curious about your past, being that you are currently a mortician, not currently practicing. And like I asked you before, because we're going to pretend like all this is new, even though it's not recorded, was recorded.
See, you didn't have to say that, though, did you?
Yeah, I did. Yes, I did.
Hold
Anyways,
on. Wait, he makes stuff, and you're going to start out with death. You're really going to start out with murder and death and all the dark stuff.
I started with the stuff he makes.
You got to ease it into him.
No, you got to just
ease into it.
You got to grab your audience like right now, otherwise they're just going to trickle off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got to shock value.
Okay.
Okay. I'm right, you're wrong. Anyways, one of my favorite podcasts is called My Favorite Murder. What are you doing with your watch?
My watch keeps going off. I'm trying to silence it.
Oh.
Okay.
Is it Jesus?
Just stick with the
You want us
script.
to say hello.
Oh, we don't have a script, but
He says hello. So I love My Favorite Murder. And they talk about all kinds of different murder, but they also talk about the system and how it's broken and all those kinds of things. But I'm intrigued by the murder brain. Like, what the heck's going on in there? So my question to you, which this will be a new answer to everybody who's listening, is, have you ever been involved in a murder case?
I have, yes. Yeah. Few homicides.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You want to tell us
don't
about
ask
it?
him about it. He doesn't want to talk about it. What do you want to know? Their names, the manner of death. What is with you? Are sick.
There are a few that come to mind, but
Poor guy.
I have to tread carefully because we don't have a lot of homicides in the area.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be easy to kind of look up details of what I would say, and then it'd be
So if we lived in Gary, Indiana, you could tell us, but since we live in Gresham,
Probably.
Oregon.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fair. Did you practice here in Gresham?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Where were you at?
Well, in the Gresham and surrounding area. So I worked at some mortuaries in the Sandy Estacada area, and then on the west side of Portland as well. And I would help out with some other local Gresham funeral homes as well when needed.
Travel around, or were you located at one place for a while and then you got a job somewhere else, or how does that work?
Well, the good thing is that the network of funeral homes they're pretty tight with each other for the most part. The competitiveness between businesses isn't incredibly strong. They like to help each other out when they get overwhelmed.
Oh,
so
that's nice.
It's not uncommon that a nearby funeral home will call over and say, hey, I've got a huge service coming up this weekend. You got anybody I can use to help? Or, I have more embalmings this week that I can handle on my own schedule. Do you have anybody to come over that can help do one for me? And usually people are pretty welcome to do that.
And what's the difference between a mortician and a medical examiner? Because I know some of that kind of overlaps, but then there's very different pieces that you guys deal with.
Two main differences is that medical examiners are physicians. They are actual doctors.
All right.
And I have absolutely no dealings with investigation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I've delivered bodies to the medical examiner's office quite often and picked up from there as well. So,
okay.
And had, brought the body out to maybe a prep room for an examiner or a private privately hired medical examiner to come and do some kind of exam. But
how often are bodies examined officially?
Not often.
Okay. Would it be more?
I mean, from a funeral home perspective,
Yeah.
not often. Medical examiner's office, I'm not
Right.
sure. They're usually pretty busy, but they've got slow times, thankfully.
Would it be more? Would somebody need a medical examiner more for insurance needs than anything else, generally, or do you know? I don't know.
No, those are usually when you would hire a private medical examiner.
Oh,
so
okay.
there are like contracted, just private physicians that'll come out and do at the funeral home a medical examination and provide that report to the family for maybe a second opinion. But most of the time, if there's an actual exam going on, it's to determine cause of death, usually for criminal investigations. But sometimes if it's just an absolute mystery and they have to rule out a possible criminal situation.
Are there certain manners of death that are required to have a medical examiner? For example, single gunshot wound to the head, is that to determine suicide or whether it was a murder? Are there certain injuries or manners of death, or at least upon first appearance, that require further investigation? Like, okay, this person died this way, therefore we must look further? Or is that a call made by the sheriff or the DA or the coroner or what?
I would assume so, but
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure. But I would imagine, there are certain circumstances where it's an absolute must.
Yeah.
But certainly not in all cases.
So
Yeah.
generally, when by the time the body gets to you, it's just ready to be made ready for the ground or for a cremation.
Yes and no.
Okay.
There's typically a lot of cleanup to do prior to even any preparation of care, for that matter.
What does cleanup mean?
So this is a little bit of this is what you're looking for, right?
This is what she's looking for. Make no mistake.
So oftentimes, and
I knew we'd
if
get
you
back
don't,
here.
if any listeners don't want to know the true ins and outs of what happens behind closed doors, oftentimes, the Y incision that usually you see on movies and things,
Sure.
that's a real thing.
Yeah.
However, when the medical examiner's office, medical examiners, I'm not going to name which one because the different counties are certainly better at this than others. But oftentimes, the body is left pretty wide open, not necessarily sutured closed, and all of the vital organs, everything in the thoracic cavity is basically put in a bag, like a black garbage bag.
And do they leave it in the cavity in the bag, or does that arrive
bag.
separately?
In the bag, and then it's my responsibility to pull it all out.
Okay, so that it arrives in the bag, but in the cavity,
Yeah.
not two separate packages.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you receive it that way, you receive the body and then the organs are in a bag. At that point, do you put those back in, or do you have to dispose of them? Like, what do you do when you get a two-package deal like that?
Because I know what I do when I get the turkey, but
Right.
Oh, dear God.
Well, it depends. If the family has decided that they're going to be cremated or something like
Yeah.
that, you don't worry about it too much. You just make
Yeah.
sure everything's in. You care for the body as much as possible and be as respectful as possible,
Yeah.
and then go about it that way. But if the person's being buried and needing to be dressed in clothing and things like that, then I open everything up and kind of saturate it with some chemicals to make sure everything is taken care of in that fashion, and then
so it doesn't smell. Is that what the
Odor is a
chemicals
big
are really
deal.
for? Okay.
that and preservation as well.
Preservation,
Plus you've got all the bodily fluids in there that you want to try to eliminate, because it'll just accelerate decomp. So
Yeah.
and then you don't want that.
And to push all the fluids of the body out, isn't there a line that goes in through the thigh artery I don't remember. I have my friends owned Cornerstone in Estacada, Barton, Estacada. Then they sold it to another friend of mine who owns it now. So I have some knowledge about, pardon me, how this stuff works. But
I know your friends.
oh, do you?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of funeral directors. It's a small
yeah,
circle,
Linda
small
Walls,
circle.
Linda Walls, Paula Booth. They owned it before. Now it's Elizabeth Fournier. And
The
she
Green Reaper.
She's the Green Reaper. Man, what's going on? She is a front runner in this whole green burial type deal.
She is, yeah.
She's really good.
Pretty influential in that area.
Yeah. She's a nice lady.
Is she like advocate for people to be buried as trees, or what does green burial mean? What does that mean?
I wouldn't say that she might be an advocate for it, but she's very informed about it. And she seems to be pretty
she could educate.
passionate about it. She's written a few books on it.
She could
and things.
educate people about it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And what does like a green burial mean?
So green burial, or sometimes used as a natural burial, is basically no chemicals, as organic and natural as possible. And usually if you're burying in a cemetery, that's pretty structured, there's usually rules about what it needs to be buried in. To prevent people from basically just putting a exposed body in the ground. And so you either have to wrap it or get an all wood, natural, or even some linen, wicker container of some sort, casket or something.
What is
But the idea is that eventually, or at a more rapid rate than if you were to put it in a concrete or metal container, that it would all go back into its natural form of the earth.
okay? And what is why don't people want bodies to be buried without an enclosure? Is it because of the sinking of the ground? It's unsafe to walk over, or is it? What?
There's that, and in the past there was a lot of fear of grave robbery. So not so much anymore, of course, but that was one of the reasons why what's called outer burial containers exist, which are oftentimes just giant concrete boxes that the casket is put into as well. So there's two main reasons for that. One is protection of the body in the casket, and then also to prevent, the cemetery wants to prevent ground seekage.
And so if you're buried inside one of those concrete outer cases and then your casket is inside, I would imagine that the deterioration of the body would take much longer, just because you're hidden from the elements. You know, the bugs aren't getting in, the water's not getting in, air isn't circulating through and causing the rapid decay.
Yeah, especially if it's a sealed. You can get it sealed with like a gasket liner to where you're getting no outer elements in.
Right.
And then
Kind of creates a mummification at that point, doesn't it? Because it's so preserved.
if the body's been embalmed, yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'll just basically liquefy and just.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, I know. So I believe my grandfather was buried in a casket, but inside one of those concrete cases. And they had to exhume him, I think for some insurance things. He died in a car accident. And so I was too young to really pay attention, so I don't really know why that he was exhumed, but they exhumed him and then discovered that the entire coffin was just filled with water. It was just filled up with water, and it was, and I can't remember if he was too far decayed to do the extra examination or not. I know it was just I feel like it was just a few short months after he was buried, but that wasn't supposed to happen. I remember my mom being very upset that his whole casket was full of water, but you don't know if you don't dig them up. And at that point, it's like, how many really get exhumed? Because I think
Not many.
Yeah, they had to go through a lot of paperwork to get
A lot of
just the
paperwork
approval.
and a lot of money.
Yeah,
Costs a lot of money, a lot of labor to do that.
Yeah.
Right,
I
exactly.
was a police officer for a little while, and when you talk about a body liquefying, that's something I've seen. We found a guy who had been, I don't know how long he had been dead, and I went to move him as a rookie cop. They were like, "Hey, you need to move that body." Well, they were playing a joke on me because only the coroner or whoever's going to show up for the medical examiner, I think it was the coroner, had to show up to help move the body, and they asked me to do it. And I went down to pick up this rather large gentleman, and it was like oh my Lord, Oh my Lord. And it was like my finger sunk into a molding of Jello, and he was just liquefied. It was
Oh, no.
it was terrible. It was all over. He was all over my shoes. It was really bad.
Yeah.
But that was,
Especially if there's a lot of edema involved, and then you got the skin slip. It can be
well, and then the gas built up inside,
yeah.
and when that
Yeah.
relieved itself, it was really bad.
I have a problem with a couple of things going on there. The first one is the preservation of evidence, right? I mean, you're
If
going
there's any
in,
left,
right. Well, you're going in there to touch the body. It's not procedure. You're not supposed to, right? And then so here you are, rookie cop, being put through the ringer by all the other cops. I mean, it doesn't. The handling of evidence is just breaking my brain
well,
right
the
now.
evidence was that he had had a heart attack or something. It was clearly a natural death. There was no forced entry or anything like that. He had been reported missing, and his family was out of state. So they asked for a welfare check, right? So went over, looked through the window. There he was, sitting in his lazy boy. Lying in his lazy boy, what have you. And it was,
Yeah.
one thing about though with cops and even with IMSA fire, the work can be so traumatic that one of the ways that they cope, not all of them, but most of them, is a dark sense of humor.
Absolutely. Sure.
And
sure.
if you don't kind of laugh and snicker at the traumatic things that are happening, like they don't really know how to deal with it. That's especially men, that's most men's way of dealing with something so incredibly traumatic to visually see is just to laugh at it or make fun of it. Not because it's funny, but because their brains doesn't know how. My brain
They
doesn't
can't
know how to.
process the grief
No,
or
how do
what's
you,
happening.
We're not. It's not something you see every day, you know?
I don't think
It's
that
terrible.
the joke isn't funny. I get the humor in it. I think it's hilarious. But
I didn't think
thinking
it was funny.
about murder, I'm
the
thinking,
man was all over my shoes.
which I actually think is tragically funny. But it's the whole like handling of, anyways.
There's a lot of training that goes into how to move and handle
a decaying body.
just any dead body, just so that you're handling it with care and respect, but also so you're not messing with the integrity of the person.
Sure.
So that if there is any family that does want to see him, that they're in the best possible appearance.
Well, my next question's super mature. What is the grossest body situation you've ever come across?
So it was very early on. I actually might have even been during my internship. While I was still in college, and there was a family member who had their spouse buried in England, and England being an island, you can imagine the wet climate not doing well for the natural process if you're looking for preservation.
Moist?
Yes.
Yes.
Quite.
I said that because Jamie obviously does not like that word. You know how many people that word triggers? It is so funny. I have zero problem with it. I don't. Do you have a problem with the word? Okay, yeah.
No, I
But
can
if you
see
say-
why people are bothered by it, but it doesn't.
Yeah,
bother
but
me.
if I
Just the
say
way it's
moist again,
Moist.
Well, you
I
can
don't-
make it worse. Yeah.
you should say it.
Moist.
There you go.
Say it again.
Moist.
That's creepy.
And now we've offended at least 4 people.
That's creepy.
Just clean your ears out with Q-tips. You're fine. Okay, sorry. I interrupted you.
Careful, though,
Podcast
'cause
is not for
Q-tips
the
can be
easily
dangerous.
triggered. It's just not.
No, it can't be.
It can't be.
Yeah, so the person was buried over there, to the best of my knowledge, without an outer burial container. So it was just a wooden casket buried in moist climate for several years. This guy was buried over there, and
Well, you were
she
saying
lives over
before
here.
Jamie decided to press record that it was 8 years.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, that's a.
If I remember correctly.
I don't know if you know this about time, but that's kind of a lot of time for a
a lot of
body
time.
to sit there and be
Had,
dead.
Had the body been embalmed?
It appeared so. I would imagine the way it looked.
But
when it
even
came
that
over.
only lasts so long, right?
Right. Yeah. It's not permanent by any means, but and depending on the conditions, it goes quicker. But
Otherwise, there'd be a bunch of jerky bodies inside the cemetery. It's just like mummified, just perfectly
Jerky bodies?
jerky. If they had
Like
all the
beef jerky?
chemicals all over them, yeah. Not like I'm not going to go eat the bodies. I'm just saying they're perfectly not rotting
Well,
with the
you've
chemicals.
definitely etched image in my mind about beef jerky now. Thank you for that.
Mike made his own jerky. It was so good. So good. But he won't let me give any of it away. I know. Jackass. Anyways, sorry.
Yeah.
We keep interrupting you, Jamie.
It's your show.
Thank you.
It's my show.
Anyways.
Yeah. So the spouse now lives
Where
here,
were we?
right?
Yes.
And they wanted to be
I
able
can
to
see why
visit.
she'd want to have him here now.
So
Okay,
she
that
relocated.
makes sense.
So
Sure.
exhumed the body over there, had it shipped over here, and
Sounds very expensive.
She wanted to very expensive, yeah. She wanted to see him, and not just see him to make sure it was him or anything like that. She wanted to visit with him, and not just for a minute, for all day, for a full week.
So, did it look like him? Like, could she identify that it was him? Other than maybe he was wearing his wedding ring.
I don't know. I know that I wouldn't have. I don't know what they look like before they died, but it would be hard to recognize what they looked like now by any stretch.
They could have put anybody in front of her. She wouldn't have known. How could she have known that after 8 years? How could she have possibly known that the?
Well, I guess if you remember the clothing that you buried them in, and maybe the jewelry that they were wearing could be
but even
an
after
indication.
8 years, that's got to be like.
I'm not entirely sure that I want to observe my husband looking like the guy from, is it Raiders of the Lost Ark? Is that the one where they drink from the goblet and he like starts?
Oh, at the
Last
end
Crusade.
where the Ark
The
of the
Last
Covenant.
Crusade. Thank
Yeah,
you. Yeah, the Last
yeah.
Crusade. Or what's that show? It's like it's
Walking
got
Dead?
No, it's got the skeleton, but it's scary stories.
Tales from the Crypt.
Tales
Creep
from
Show.
the Crypt. I'm so
Oh,
glad.
I was thinking of Creep Show.
Creep
See?
Show, I think, is
That was old,
connected
in
with
the
Tales
80s,
from the
right?
Crypt. It might be the
Was it?
same company that put both of them on.
Yeah, it probably was.
Yeah. So I mean, and to come back day after day, that would wreck me.
It was it was.
I mean, it's seared into your brain. You don't even know the guy.
Yeah, I can see it right now in my brain. And I don't look at it necessarily negatively. I mean, there's some of it that is not, makes your stomach, just because of the natural appearance of what our bodies do. But it was from an intriguing, interested standpoint, especially being new in that part of the industry, was a fascinating teaching of the human experience, where she was so compassionately connected to her partner that she didn't see him the way he currently looked. Like she could care less.
Did she touch him? Oh, I can't.
So,
I get it. I get the love, and I get the. Okay.
Is
all
this
right.
going to turn into
I'll digress.
Jeremy? We don't want to produce necrophilia type
No, nothing
material.
like that. Not quite that far. No.
Okay,
It was
all
it was appropriate as far as most behavior goes.
Okay.
That is a
but
relief.
When the body came over, it was our responsibility to clean him up, get him as clean as possible. So we had to remove the clothing that he had on, bathe him, redress him, which was.
Sorry, I have to stop you again because going back to Jamie's story with the gentleman and the lazy boy, and he went to pick him up, and the guy basically popped like a zit all over his shoe. And then you go and bathe an 8-year-old decaying body. That had to have been a very gentle process. Jamie, quit laughing.
Yes.
It's a very serious conversation we're having right now. Have some compassion.
It was a very delicate process, because you can imagine, it was a lot more difficult to
Almost like dinosaur bone, like very soft brushes, soft hands.
Yeah, I
And
mean
coping.
a lot of the
Using
skin
Dawn
and
dish
muscular
soap.
tissue, a lot of the soft tissue had already been gone.
This is my nightmare.
Was he straight skeleton at this point?
No,
Or was there still some
there
flesh?
was some flesh,
Yeah.
some soft tissue still on, but in a lot of the thin areas, like around the knuckles, around the scalp, his skull was exposed for the most part. So there was a lot of the exterior soft tissue, muscular tissue, skin and stuff that was had already.
Goonies was on TV the other day.
my
Yesterday I watched Goonies
My
with the
favorite
kids.
movie. It's my
Is it
favorite.
really?
You should have invited me over.
What was the captain's name that they discovered?
One-Eyed Willie.
One-Eyed Willie. It was kind of like, he still had, there wasn't any flesh
Well,
though.
he had like petrified stuff. That's the stuff that you use. You use like pantyhose on like a skeleton, and then you spray it with something for for the Halloween skeleton stuff.
Yeah, well, how long was One-Eyed Willie dead though? Do anybody know?
Like
when,
100 years. No, a couple hundred years.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
Okay. Anyway, so you're bathing this
Yeah.
body that has decayed very carefully
Yeah.
with probably a partner, because there's
You use-
probably
It was a team effort.
Irish Spring or like what? Like what do you use? Like just soap and water, or do you go like straight up
Soap
fruit,
and water,
fructus?
yeah.
or
No,
what's
it's
it?
Okay.
a lot of it's just generally like soap and water.
Yeah.
And you just gently take care of them and make them as presentable as possible. And
So this is before she had the opportunity to view
she has
him.
not seen him yet at this
Okay,
point.
so it's not just you
Or
brought.
she may have, but I don't remember that she did at this point.
Okay, so you brought over this. The casket's probably a little
It
worse
was
for wear.
trashed,
Yeah.
It was.
And then you pull him out of it. That's where I'm envisioning her seeing him. And
Yeah.
like the vision I have in my head, I don't know why, is like a dead body in the surf with like seaweed on them, and they're rotting, and I don't know why my brain went there. I don't know. It feels better knowing that you took the time to
for
care
sure.
for and bathe and probably reclothe him.
Yeah, and clean.
And
new
then put him
clothes,
in a
yeah.
new casket,
casket.
before she viewed him. That feels better to me than a moist body
Yes.
from England
I-
being viewed after you crack the casket open.
I have another question for Jeremy. It's a little off this topic of dead people,
Yeah.
but in another way it's related. Jeremy and I share some. What is going on? I'm having drinks and everything. Jeremy and I do share something in common, other than we're both tall and very handsome. One of the things we share in common are we both like horror movies, scary movies, such as Poltergeist to some of the older ones, Insidious maybe. Insidious terrified me. It was wonderful. My question to you is your affection, so to speak, for scary movies. Is that a reflection of your work, or did you have that before? And did you, if it was before, if you always liked scary movies, was that part of the inspiration to maybe want to deal with that type of work with the dead, that kind of a thing? Not that you love dead people, but that it obviously doesn't affect you too badly, right? I mean, you're able to do it. You did it. Did that influence you to get into that kind of work, or did that kind of work influence your love for scary movies?
Completely unconnected.
Oh, okay.
I loved scary movies as a kid.
Yeah,
There's
me
something
too.
weird about how I enjoy that uneasy feeling in your stomach of not real fear. I don't like real fear.
Yeah.
But fake fear when you're watching a movie or going to
Like
a haunted
that
house.
drop when you're on a
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
it's like a
Oh.
safe
Yes.
fear almost.
I like
Which
that.
It's like
my
getting on a roller
My son
coaster.
calls those crotch droppers, by the way. Maybe that's a later story.
Oh my God.
And then
From now
curtain-
on, that's what it is.
went to took a recent trip to Disneyland, and any ride that made that dropping feeling in your stomach, my son says he feels it in his crotch, so we call them crotch droppers
So
now.
Yeah.
So the
Tower
next-
of Terror, rest
yeah,
in peace.
I was gonna say, well, because they still have it on the East Coast. Disney World still has Tower of Terror.
Really?
Yeah. So
Good.
when I go to Tower of Terror next time, or Guardians of the Galaxy in
Oh, yeah,
Disneyland,
that was
or
good.
California Adventure,
California.
I'm gonna say this was a crotch dropper.
yeah.
Oh my God. Okay.
It's hilarious.
So where were we?
Scary movies.
Bathing?
Scary movies, yeah.
Scary
so,
movie.
completely
yeah.
unconnected.
Yeah.
I found out as a young person when I was watching movies that were far above my age availability, and I just really kind of enjoy that feeling of being scared a
Yeah.
little bit. Not too much into the gore and things like that, but just this really good quality scare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the ones that really sustain that uneasy feeling, like
Yeah.
The Exorcist does, where there's not a whole lot of jump scare, but
No, but it's
you
looming.
feel
It's always
weird
looming.
The whole time you're watching, you feel
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
I kind of enjoy that.
How old are you?
I'm 39.
Okay. So I'm 51. What was the first scary movie you really thought, this is awesome, that you can remember?
Poltergeist is one of them.
I used to watch that when I was little.
The pool scene, right? Especially the pool scene
at the very end. With all the skeletons and things.
Have you seen it?
Yes. Well, I used to watch it when I was like 2.
Really?
Yeah. My mom and dad.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. That's why I am the way I am. I would say the first movie that really affected me bad was the Blair Witch Project.
Same.
That one
was
messed with my
terrifying.
brain.
I bought into it. I thought it was all real.
Same. When
yeah.
I went to that movie and it was the most packed I've ever seen a theater, there were people sitting in the aisle because there were no more seats available. Like
Yeah.
at that time, they just sold tickets. It wasn't like a sold out situation. There were people sitting in the aisles. There were so many people in that theater. So it was that one. And then the newer version, I think like the early 2000s or late 90s version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Rob Zombie did that.
Because I was told it was a true story. Same with Blair Witch, right? And so that really messed up with my head.
Well, it's based on a true story, yeah.
So it messed me up. And the ones that really mess me up are the ones that you can't fight off. So the ones that are coming out of your TV, or the ones that are like the ghosts that you can't see, or the apparitions. Those are the ones that really scare me. The ones that it's actually people, I'm the whole time I'm thinking through my head, this is the weapon I would have, like in Scream, right?
Yeah.
Why would you go up the stairs when you could just go out the front door? That's what I'm thinking in those movies. But the scariest ones to me are the ones that are like somebody's kind of going insane, or there's an apparition of some sort that you can't fight off.
Yeah.
Those are scary.
Let's do this. I got an idea. Because there's always down to the Mount Rushmore. There's 4 faces on Mount Rushmore. Let's go around. What is your Mount Rushmore? Your top 4 scary movies that you've ever seen? They may not be the best ever, but the ones that impacted you maybe early on, or the ones that scared you the most, or the ones you still love. Mm-hmm. If you had to only pick 4 scary movies to watch the rest of your life, which ones would they be? Ready, go.
I would say the original Saw. That one's crazy.
Yeah.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think I've only watched Blair Witch Project once, so I would probably revisit that.
It was brilliant.
Yeah.
8mm film.
It was really good.
Cost near nothing to make that movie.
Right. And then my last one, Scream. Every day, all day, I can watch that movie on repeat. I don't think of it really as a scary movie, though. I think of it more as a comedy.
I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Oh, that one's a good one. Or Final Destination.
Oh, that freaked me out.
Oh, yeah. So those are my 6.
Those are your 6. Yeah, well, we asked for 4. What were the 4 again? Texas Chainsaw
Massacre, Blair Witch Project, Scream, and I can't remember what the last
scary
one was.
movie.
Saw.
Thank you.
Yeah. We'll save our guest for last. Give him a chance to think about it.
What's his name? I can't remember. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Go ahead.
The man on the little tricycle?
No. Oh, also Shining.
Jigsaw.
Yeah, Jigsaw. Shining.
Yeah, Jigsaw.
Shining. Not scary. Not scary at all. No. Not scary, not even a little bit. In fact, I got about halfway through and I looked at my husband and I said, I don't get it. And I know it's all psychological and he's going crazy and stuff. Yeah, not scary.
Yeah. All right. So my 4, I'm going to go with the earliest movie that I saw. One of the first movies I ever saw in the theater. It may have been the first movie. My dad took me when my mom was out of town. Friday the 13th, 3D.
Oh, okay.
Put the glasses on, Jason.
Yeah.
I heard that they were saying, kill.
Die.
Kill. See, I always heard So anyway, I would say Friday the 13th, number 3, and then I went backwards and watched them all. I would say the second one is probably Insidious. Insidious freaked me out. It just freaked me out. I'm going to go with you on number 3, The Blair Witch Project. That freaked me out. One reason being I had an 8mm camera and I spent a lot of time in the woods and I've seen a lot of weird stuff in the woods. Never a Bigfoot, but I've seen a lot of, don't open that up again. I've seen a lot of weird stuff in the woods, man. I ain't ever seen no Blair Witch stuff. I've seen where sacrifices were made in the woods out in Georgia. Okay. So I'd say Blair Witch is number 3. And number 4, you guys are probably going to laugh, but it's a tie. Can I do a tie? You did 6.
I did 6, so
The
I don't
tie
think
is
there's no rules
between
here.
the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre
Okay.
and
The one with Matthew McConaughey?
was that the very first one, the one that was made in like the
70s,
1970s?
late 70s, yeah.
Was he in that?
Pretty sure, yeah.
Oh,
Wow, I don't even
I didn't know that.
I don't know.
I've never seen it, so now I kind of want to watch a bunch of scary movies.
Yeah, we should do that and do a reaction podcast to it. So it's between the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the first, the old one. I like the really old ones, are creepy to me. And I see dead people. That movie, it's not
See, that one
horror.
didn't scare me.
No, it just freaked me out. Death freaks me out a little
Okay,
bit. And
all
I'm
right.
comfortable with it.
Yeah,
But
that one didn't.
that freaked me out a little bit.
That one didn't scare me.
Honorable mention, Hostel. Hostel.
Yeah. Well, we watched it
Because
it came out during a time when I was almost,
Traveling and stuff?
Well, almost at the age where I would go out going and backpacking.
Yeah, exactly.
In
Me
Europe
too. Me
would have
too.
been an option, right? So I
Same.
think it came out when I was like 17 or 18.
Yeah.
And I watched that and I was like, oh, nope, not staying at a hostel. Never will do that.
I didn't even want to go to a hotel.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go to a motel.
Well-
See the hostel that they were in, it was interior access to your room.
Yeah.
And that's supposed to be safer than like a motel exterior,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
You're not safe in a hotel or a motel after watching that movie. You're
Well-
like, oh my God, this could happen to me. It could happen to anybody. I mean, think about how they got taken and
The more I listen to like the My Favorite Murder podcast, they have people that write in and tell them these crazy stories. And I don't know if you saw the TikTok video, it was a couple years ago, where this girl, she saw something funky around her medicine cabinet in her bathroom in her apartment. She took the medicine cabinet off the wall, and there was a space between the wall and the next wall. And it's supposed to be so they can get in there and do electrical work. But
dear Lord.
then there was a hole where the medicine cabinet went into the next apartment, and that was unoccupied. And it turns out that somebody was watching her. Yeah, and that is not
That's real?
uncommon in apartment complexes, especially older ones. Yeah.
Jeremy and I, before we were talking about
crazy.
something similar, Candyman. Remember Candyman? Just coming through the
yeah.
walls? Dude, Candyman freaked me out.
That's the
Black
first thing
dude with
that
a
came to
hook, man. Is that the first thing that you
First,
thought of?
when she said the medicine cabinet, I said,
Yeah,
"This
me
is
too.
Candyman."
Candyman.
We used to do that to scare each other at sleepovers. We would dare each other to go into the bathroom and put our fingers on the wall or on the mirror and then say,
Bloody
like,
Mary.
red rum,
Or
red rum. It was
Red Rum.
murder.
Red Rum.
Bloody Mary was another one. Candyman. We would say Candyman. Yeah. I tried Beetlejuice. Doesn't work. Yeah.
Well, you're not afraid of Beetlejuice?
No.
Me neither.
That guy's too goofy.
Michael Keaton fan, though. Best Batman ever.
When does the
Shout
new,
out to Michael Keaton.
When does the new Beetlejuice come out? There's a
They're
new one coming out.
remaking it with who?
No,
Who's gonna be
they're not
Beetlejuice?
remaking it. It's like them now. So Michael Keaton's going to be in it, and so is what is Lydia's name?
Oh,
Starts with a G.
Why can't I think?
Yeah.
Of it?
Jean.
No. Lydia's the you're thinking Gina Davis.
Right.
Yeah. No, I'm thinking Lydia, the goth girl.
yeah, the goth girl.
What the heck is her name?
I'll look it up.
She's in Stranger Things.
Yeah, she is in Stranger Things.
Is she really?
Yes.
What does
She's
she
the
do in
mom.
Stranger Things?
She's the mom.
That's Winona Ryder.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Is it
Winona
really?
Ryder. Yeah. So they're both going to be in it. But I don't know when it's supposed to come out. I don't know if it got put on hold because of the writer's strike or what happened to it.
I love Stranger Things, by the way.
Same. Those
Matter of
kids
fact,
are really great
My
actors.
daughter, my 16-year-old daughter and I named my vehicle E-L, for
okay.
11. Yeah, we love 11.
Yeah.
She's my favorite.
I like her.
She likes Robin and what's his name that run around together?
Steve.
Steve, yeah. But anyway, we've got to get to your
Yeah, what are yours?
Mount Rushmore of horror movies.
So Poltergeist, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Exorcist is probably my favorite, the original one.
Oh man, yeah.
Blair Witch Project, because I totally bought into it. Because the the whole crew on that did such a good job of doing the whole backstory. Those early times on the internet when you couldn't research things too thoroughly, and they created backstories for all these college students and that were in the movie.
Yeah.
Very scary. And then my fourth one, I just had it in my mind, and then it went out. But
that's because Jamie talks too much.
Maybe. It could be. There's a 90s. Oh, I found it. Fire in the Sky. Not necessarily known as a scary movie per se, because it's about alien abduction.
Oh, interesting.
But it traumatized me as a child.
Okay.
Traumatized me.
How
There's
so?
a scene in the movie where he's on the side of the road and he looks up and he gets abducted, and then in certain parts of the movie, and he comes back down and he's traumatized, this character, and it shows flashbacks of when he's like tied down to this table of some sort, and they're examining on him and studying him, and he sees the images of the aliens, and it was just freaked me out.
What is that movie called again?
Fire in the Sky.
Fire in the Sky. All right, and that was
Might have
from
been
the 90s?
late 80s, early 90s,
Okay.
something like that.
All right.
I think they recently redid it. I haven't seen the remake, but
We're going to have to look that up.
I heard that new movie with, was it Ethan Hawke? I can't remember who also played in it.
End of the World or something
Yeah,
like that.
I heard that
Julia
one's
Roberts, I think, is in it.
crazy. As far as like real world, you have zero control over it. Scary. I haven't seen it yet.
Oh,
Yeah. So
yeah.
you're cleaning this body.
Yes. Circle back, sure.
We had to put a pin
Did
in
we-
it. We bracketed it.
Did we really?
We put a pin
we
in
really
it.
quit in the middle of that?
Yeah.
I let us off track.
Yeah. He's still telling a story. It's fine. We
All
forgive
right.
you.
So Jeremy gives the deceased a bath, and that's where we're at.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
all
we reclothed him and put him out to be viewed. And keep in mind, it's impossible to re-embalm this body at this point. The conditions are just too bad. Unless we wanted to just pour salt all over the body, it was impossible to preserve it at this point.
Is that a thing though? Salt all over the body?
Yeah, actually,
that
the
can be-
origins of embalming go back to ancient Egyptians.
Oh, wow.
So mummification is the first embalming that we're aware of as far
And-
as human history goes.
And then they soak the cloth in something, right? Then wrap the body, or do you know how? that-
Alcohol, arsenic, things like that. yeah.
Interesting. Okay. All right, I'll be quiet.
But salt or natron is
To dry it out so
Yeah.
it doesn't rot. I mean, water is one of the biggest enemies to rot.
it is
right?
Sure.
yeah,
Water and fat,
moisture.
moisture.
Yeah. Not good for preservation.
No.
So there were a lot of parameters we had to put in place as far as like air conditioning, because temperature is a big deal as well.
Especially since she wanted it for 5 days.
Right.
Now, did she originally ask for 5 days? So it was 5.
It might have been more than 5 days, but it was
Right.
right around a full
Well,
week.
I guess what my question is did she ask for 10 and you all were like, we need to do 5 because at that point it's not sanitary anymore. We got to get him back in the ground, or because 5 seems just like a very weird random number.
We have so many questions, don't we?
Yeah.
I mean,
this is
what-
very curious to me.
What was the clothing and who picked it out? Like,
Ooh, I
was
had
it
that
like Weekend at
question, too.
Bernie's? Like, I would want to be on a Weekend at Bernie's type thing. I'd want a Hawaiian shirt or some flip flops or whatnot.
Sunglasses.
Just saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, who picked out his clothes?
Get a sun lamp?
And did she pick out the clothes and
She
brought
did, yeah.
them?
She brought them in, yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Were they
Okay.
designer or were they just like off the rack Kohl's stuff?
was
Probably
a-
they're probably his clothes.
I don't know if they were his.
Okay.
They could have been.
Okay.
They looked pretty new.
Oh.
But it was a nice suit, a gray.
Oh, a suit.
It
Okay.
was grayish and almost like an olive color as well, because he had a matching hat, which
Okay.
I think we recommended due to the exposure of his scalp.
Boy,
So-
this
Yeah,
is
that-
etched into your mind.
It
You,
is.
he
That was-
remembers
I
the
can
color
see
of the
him
suit
right
and
now.
everything.
And the moment I'm about to tell you about is what's most etched into my mind. And for obvious reasons, but also, like I said, I'm always very curious about the human condition and how we deal with things and act and just all that. So he's there and she comes in, and one of the first things she does, and keep in mind, his face, like his nose is gone. You know, the tip of his nose, all the cartilage, gone.
Yeah.
Eyes, for the most part, exposed. Eyebrows, everywhere where it's really thin is gone. very skull bone exposed, including no lips. And she leans down and gives him a good smooch.
I was afraid of that.
I had a feeling you were going there, and I don't know if you ever put the camera on my face, but I was terrified, and then it went there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And at first, it's jarring, like, oh my gosh. But when I thought about it after that,
but
it is.
Love is blind.
It's beautiful, but also
it's gross. You can say it.
I don't feel like gross is the right word for it. I mean, yes, it is gross, but it's like, yeah, I don't have a word for it.
That's a first.
Yes. Yes, you're absolutely right.
Well,
you have rendered me speechless, Jeremy.
There should be some kind of an award here. Jeremy, I want to award you this. You can take this home with you and never bring it back. That would be outstanding.
Oh, he looks like you. Cute.
Yeah.
Twins.
Look, he even did it.
There is a little resemblance.
That's
there.
a great. That should be a gift.
Minus the hair.
We should make a gif out of that. He's bobbing in here. We'll put her little friend
That could
back.
be my thumbnail.
Yeah.
See, that's why I keep his base on there.
Yeah. That is disturbing.
But essentially, yeah, that is the.
No, it doesn't work. Sorry. Oh, hold him up. That's sacrilege.
You're gonna get struck by lightning.
Probably.
Right?
Yeah, that's
what I
really
deal with.
intense.
It is, and it was one of the first things I ever did.
Yeah, I was just, especially for the one.
Talk about jumping in feet first.
You were saying you were new at this. You had just started, right?
I'm pretty sure it was during my internship.
That feels very Romeo and Juliet, but she didn't follow through. It's like, you go, I'm going. I have to have you right next to me. And I'm sure that she probably lived somewhere nearby the cemetery, which is probably why she chose either that's where she was going to live or that's the cemetery she was going to have him at. And he's probably there.
It's where we buried him. I know exactly where he's at.
Can you say which cemetery it is? No?
I'd rather not.
That's
just
fine.
For family privacy reasons. And all that.
No worries. It's death is a very curious thing, and people say, just like when you're in a dangerous situation, oh, these are the things I would do, and then you start listing them off. Somebody was attacking me, or if I had somebody in my family die, these are the things I would do. We find that with being a parent too. A lot of non-parents like to say, oh, why do you do that? This is what I would do. But unless you're in the situation, you don't really know. And I say, I would not want to see my husband that way. And I feel like that's true. Because I don't even know if I told this story or not. Was it pre-record or is it after you press record? But my grandpa, he died in an auto accident.
No, you didn't tell the story.
Okay. So he died in an auto accident when I was about 18, and he went through the windshield. So there's a lot of damage.
Yeah, I've seen that.
But they decided still to have a viewing. And so the person did their best to make him look as good as possible, but it almost looked clown-like to me, which is disturbing, and that's not who he was. And so for me, I disassociated because that's clearly not the grandfather I know. So I don't actually remember what he looked like at the viewing. I remember what he looked like when he was alive and well.
Like, did your brain block it out, or did you block it out?
Well,
a little bit of both, maybe?
I feel like they're both the same thing. No?
Well, I don't know.
How is it different?
Like, I unconsciously block trauma out. I know that I've had in the past. I just block it out.
Absolutely.
And I don't even I know it happened, but I have to really go back, like the stuff I went through. Mm-hmm. I have to go back into the old file cabinet to pull out the feelings, like, because I'm very emotional. So when I remember things and trauma of the past, and I remember those things, emotions are attached to everything, and that's good or bad or ugly.
Right.
But that's how it is with me. But my brain has blocked out a lot of trauma of things that I've experienced or seen. And so I didn't try to block it out. It's just a defense mechanism. So I was just curious as to whether you said to yourself, I'm blocking this out, or your brain just said, I can't handle this. It's not how I remember it. 'Cause
I
we
think
do
it
a lot
was-
of things unconsciously we don't realize.
Absolutely. I think it was more my brain decided
Yeah.
to do that because I don't think at the time I was definitely not the person I am today. I was an 18-year-old kid. So I think it was most definitely my brain said, that doesn't need to be stored
Yeah.
anywhere. If I really think about it, I could probably recall it, but I
Yeah.
don't remember it that way. I don't necessarily believe that we should have had a viewing. But his kids felt like my mom and her sisters and her brother felt like they needed that, and that's fine. But I wish somebody would have given me more of a warning. And then when my uncle passed away, they had a viewing for him, and I stayed at the back of the room. That was my safe distance.
You didn't want to chance it.
No, I was comfortable. I'm here. Don't make me go up. And I feel like that's something you should honor in people at, a funeral or in a hospital, those kinds of things, is come as close as you want to your comfort level. If you need to sit in the back, if you need to be in the lobby, like whatever that makes sense to you, because it's all very personal. You don't really know how you're going to react when you get there. But I do remember my grandmother's funeral, and I was only like 8 at the time, and she had an open casket, and I went up and viewed, and
It was fine.
it was fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe it's hit and miss depending on the condition of the body.
Right.
I've seen, as a former pastor of 15 years, I've officiated many more funerals than weddings, actually. I actually enjoy them better just because everybody in the room, and that's my next question for Jeremy, everybody in the room gets a mortality check. When someone you know and love has passed away, all of a sudden you're keenly aware of your mortality that, wow, one day I'm going to be in a casket or in an urn or whatnot. And so everybody comes to the same, for the most part, the same realization that, oh my gosh, I'm not going to live forever. Like, I'm going to die. He died.
Right.
She died. I'm going to die at some point. And so I guess my question for you, Jeremy, is because of that work that you've done in the past, are you, this may be a stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Are you more keenly aware of how fragile life is and your mortality as you were before you did that line of work? And is that a curse or a blessing to you?
Yes, I am. Having encountered and physically handled, probably a few thousand dead bodies.
Wow.
Heard several thousand stories, and I haven't seen it all because you're always finding yourself encountering something you've never seen or experienced before. But it starting doing that gave me a completely different perspective on life. Absolutely. More of what you would consider to be a blessing than a curse, using those words, but more of an appreciation of life. And then it definitely changed even more so after I had a child.
Oh, yeah.
Because then you see it even differently. More precious life is, and what you do with it, and the things you do, and people you experience it with.
I get since having kids, there's more fear that comes over me when I go on things like roller coasters versus before. There's like this sense of, if something happens to me, what the heck is going to happen to them, right?
And it's not about what happens to you, right?
No.
It's the effect it will have on
exactly.
them. Oh, 100%.
Yeah. So the woman in your story, how old was she? What was her age?
It's hard to tell. I don't remember her as well as I remember him.
Right.
But I would guess in her 60s.
So fairly young.
Yeah, as far as mortality goes,
losing a spouse and having them be gone for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
See, I imagined her being like 80.
Same.
Did you too?
Yeah.
Because it's like, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but anybody younger than like 75, 80, I would think, man, who in their right mind would do that? Like kiss a skeleton,
Yeah.
But On the other hand, we also understand that love it really is blind, and not always in a bad way.
Yeah.
In that clearly when she looked at him, she did not see she looked past what she saw physically.
Right.
And she saw the spirit of who he was and who she believes he still is, maybe.
And
she
apparently
responded
still there.
and she responded accordingly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did
I think
she?
it's beautiful. As gross as it is, it's just as beautiful, because beauty's in the
Right.
eye of the beholder, and what she saw versus what we see is clearly different, obviously.
And it's also very clear that Jamie and I are very interested in the psychology. Like, where was her mind at? When she's doing this, and so you said she got to view him for 5 days or so from your memory. When she came in, was it like she got there when they opened and left when they closed? And was she touching him? Was she reading to him? Like, kind of what was the? Did she just sit there in silence? Did she pray? Like, what was she doing?
A lot of the times she was in there privately with the doors closed.
Oh, okay.
And I do know that there was a fair amount of preparation as far as waivers and things done to make sure, because they were, circumstances beyond what is considered typical. There's a lot of paperwork involved to make sure that the funeral home wouldn't be in a liable situation if she were to have a negative reaction when she saw him and be scarred, and then a potential lawsuit and something go wrong, or if say worst case scenario, she made physical contact with him and a body part fall off just because of the condition of his body, and that mentally traumatized her. There was a lot of discussion with her to make sure you're okay with this emotionally, mentally, physically, the whole thing. Before we actually do this, you need to make sure you're ready so that we're ready to make sure it happens for you. If that answers your question.
Yeah, I would be concerned about toxic material too. I don't know if that would be a normal thing to be aware of, or that it's even a problem at that point. Because I know that when human bodies deteriorate, there are some toxic things. At least that's my understanding. Maybe after 8 years, that's not really an issue. But man, that is just...
you think of an animal decaying, right? Like, you have chicken breast in your fridge for too long and it expires. Or even just having chicken breast on your hands and cooking and then having to wash your hands so you don't get sick. I mean, I would assume it would be the same sort of situation with a body, whether it's salmonella or E. coli or listeria or any of these other not bloodborne pathogens, the bacteria that can live on meat, on flesh.
So
interesting.
Erin, do you want to be cremated, or would you like a viewing?
Because
Jeremy's going to do it for us. Cool. We're going to contract him.
Yeah, well,
we'll have the paperwork.
He's younger than
today.
both of us, so
I'm certified how to operate a crematory too. So,
but when I die,
people could.
He's going to be like 105 years old, so he's going to be like this. So all of my stitches are going to be all jigsawed in and stuff, and it might not be very pleasant for my family, but it'll be fine. I actually don't know. I don't know how to answer that question.
I don't really either. I don't know what I want.
I feel like the best case scenario for me, like the only thing that has looked somewhat decent to me, is to get me a really cozy blanket, wrap me in that freaking blanket, and plant a tree on my head. Just doot, and then let me grow into a tree. I don't want to be cremated because the idea of being burned does nothing for me. Like that freaks me out.
You won't feel a thing.
And then being buried,
will she, Jeremy? She won't feel a thing, will she?
Not likely. Not likely.
I don't like the idea of spending so much money on something that you're going to put into the ground, like like the caskets and things like that. Like
expensive.
I would spend all that money on my kids, but I'm not planning on dying at an age where spending a lot of money on a linen lined casket or velvet lined or whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
I just go to the store, buy a cheap $5 cozy blanket from Fred Meyer, wrap me up in it, put me in a field somewhere, and plant a tree on top of me.
I wrote a living trust for a guy who wants to be buried in a Yeti cooler.
No, that's too expensive. I'd rather buy a coffin.
I told Elizabeth Fournier down at Cornerstone, I said what I would like is I would like a basketball. You want to take an incision. I would like my ashes inside the basketball on a little platform, and the kids can put it up on the mantle. And Dad was there in the basketball. And so I think that's a great idea. She says it's never been done.
Okay. That's a good way to think outside the box.
Absolutely. Who else do you know that's
Outside
buried in
the
a
urn.
basketball? What's that?
Outside the urn.
There you go.
Thinking
Yeah.
outside the urn.
I mean, I've got
see what he did there.
I have 2 dogs that are on shelves in my house that we cremated.
Taxidermy?
No, cremated.
That's disgusting.
Taxidermy would be nice because you can still pet them. But I don't know what to do with that. Like, do you pass it on to your kids? I feel like we should just go somewhere and bury the boxes. I think the boxes
Yeah.
have seeds in them, so you
Like,
could
where
actually
would we
bury.
put Erin? Where would we put Erin? Right here in this little Sasquatch.
Just throw me in the ocean. I
Yeah.
won't care.
I don't know. You know, I've often thought that if my entire family were gone,
Mm-hmm.
and this is why I don't have to worry about my body honoring my kids and stuff. If we're all gone, I would like Elizabeth Fournier, if you're watching. I know she is. She likes us. She's glued to this. Trust me.
She needs something.
I would like to
listen while
have,
she's working.
when she does work on me, I want my eyes wide open like this, and I want to be smiling, showing my teeth, and I want to be in a Hawaiian shirt,
Yeah.
shorts, flip flops, my wedding ring, and I think no one would ever forget my memorial service if that were the case.
Can we
But
do
if I have family, my parents and everybody, let's do it a little bit.
Can we
bit
can we
better.
do a crank that every time somebody walks by your casket, okay?
I blink.
They crank it one time.
Jeremy,
just one time.
Jeremy can arrange this.
And then one random
done it.
person will crank it that one time, and you'll pop up like a Jack in the Box. So everybody gets one crank on their way
Wow.
by.
That is brilliant,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
I could see Jeremy sitting to the side with a lever and wait till
Till the
people
5-year-old
I have
goes by.
chosen by list. They can only come view me one at a time and privately. Those are my wishes. And when they do, Jeremy will pull a lever and I'll sit up boom, boom, and turn my head like that. Now talking about a horror movie. Jeremy, you can get down with that, right?
You know, I've always said I kind of took the mentality from someone else who was in the industry
Make
who
it
taught me
fun.
a lot of things. Is if it's not illegal, it's not immoral, and not generally in bad taste, why the heck not?
Yeah.
Yeah, and morals differ, right? It depends on who you are. They're subjective for the most part, unless you're me. But
I went to a funeral once for a kid. I believe he was.
gosh.
No, it's a beautiful story. So I believe he was older than my son. I think he was 16 when he passed away. He was riding his bike, middle of the night, got hit by a car. And at the funeral, they had him cremated, so he was there in an urn at the funeral. And kid funerals are terrible.
The worst.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh, everybody's a mess.
yeah,
Worst isn't the right word, but they're
Yeah, there's no word for it.
toughest.
Yeah,
I've
absolutely.
actually experienced that. I had a 2-year-old son that died of cancer at St. Jude.
I read
And
that
it's
in your
just a
story.
little, it's not good.
No.
It's bad.
It is.
It's tough.
It is. At this funeral, what I really liked, it was at Bateman Carroll, and the woman that put on the service, that spoke and did the service, she was very relatable, especially to the kids that were there, and she was upbeat but in a respectful way, and somber, but like she was a good combination of all of the things you needed to be in the moment. But one thing they did is this kid's favorite color is purple. And so they got a bunch of these purple stones. I can't remember what that stone is called.
Yeah.
Anyways, they got a bunch of these purple stones and they handed them out. They had like 30 of them or something. And they handed them out to people and said, since he was taken so early, one thing he didn't get to do is, travel the world. So as you travel the world, take this stone with you. And if you find a really great place that you think he would like, leave the stone.
That's a great idea.
Leave a piece. Yeah, it was beautiful. My son, unfortunately, wasn't one that received a stone, but I happen to have one at home.
Wow.
So I gave him it, and I was like, here, take this. And he knew immediately what it was for and what he was going to do with it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he's dropped it off somewhere yet or if he still has kept it. But I thought that was, what a beautiful way to kind of just say goodbye in your own way, somewhere in the world where it was just you and this stone that represents him. It was great.
When it comes to funerals and celebrations of life, the psychology behind all of it is not for the person who's passed, it's for the closure of those who are experiencing the loss, right? And so those types of things are things that you remember, activities you'll remember that associates you with the person, because over time we do forget about people. Maybe not completely, but we're like, oh, I remember that guy. Well, if there's an action attached to your grief towards a certain person and you drop a stone, you literally never forget about dropping a stone, and therefore you never forget about the person.
Right.
Because one of the biggest fears of family members, especially with parents who have children who die, is that no one's going to remember my loss of my child or my husband or my wife the way I do. Mm-hmm. And it's not really sick, but it's a little bit selfish that I want you to remember my loss and remember my pain. I want you to feel pain with me, or else I will feel alone. And so sometimes these are ways of making sure everybody else feels a little bit of my pain so that we can share the load together. And that's the unselfish part. We're supposed to share the load together. On the other hand, it takes sacrifice on your parts to also carry some of my pain, so that I don't have to carry it all. Just knowing you're carrying some of it, even though it's so heavy to me, even knowing that you're carrying some of it is a relief to those who need the closure and healing.
Right.
It's really a community effort, but those activities help the person who's closest that's grieving to know that you too are grieving. Mm-hmm. It's important so that we don't feel alone.
Yeah.
And that whole idea we're all sharing the load a little bit.
Yeah. Jeremy, how do you want to go? Buried, cremated, dumped into the ocean?
For the longest time, I was kind of saying, whatever my family or whoever's taking care of those decisions, whatever makes them feel the most comfortable and the happiest with, I'm okay with, because I have no preference. I have no necessarily like a belief in the afterlife or anything like that. So what happens with what's remaining of me after that is not of my concern. Then I realize that's a little selfish to leave all of that responsibility and decision making and the stress on that on someone else who might have it in their mind, even no matter how many times I might say it that I don't care, they still might be thinking I want to do what he wanted to do and I don't know, which is why I got into helping people plan ahead of time so much in the later years of my mortuary experience.
Sure.
To make sure that what people wanted was put on paper and sometimes even prepaid for, set up ahead of time. So
that's what I do for a living.
Done.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I do for a living, so that the kids don't have to argue about, well, unplug dad. No, keep dad alive. And now you got a fracture in the family, including with burial. Does dad want to be cremated, or does he want to have a celebration of life or a funeral? Well, there is a difference, actually. What would he want? I don't know, but I want this. Well, I want that. If you can make those decisions ahead of time, you squish all the arguing. They may not like what you've decided for yourself and for them, but hey, at least it keeps them from arguing.
Right.
That's what I did just about full time for the last 3-4 years of my time doing it. Was
the whole planning
almost
part?
Exclusively the planning part.
Wow.
So I would get to meet with someone who's making either their own plans or plans for somebody else, getting it all hashed out and put on paper, and then sometimes paid for ahead of time, so that it's just all taken care of. Because I saw the difference, the emotional response and the stress of not knowing what to do, especially in unexpected deaths,
right,
versus having everything known. The emotional response, night and day.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized once I kind of saw that and connected to it, I thought that's what I want to make happen. I always say that I always want to make the best possible worst day of people's lives.
Yeah.
And if I can prepare people for that, it makes it an even better worst day of their life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
It's not
If
as
that
heavy
makes
as
sense.
it's not as heavy as it
Yeah.
could be. You know, speaking of making plans for all these people, helping them navigate through things. You do a different kind of making now, don't you? Don't you make stuff now?
I do.
Like,
I make stuff.
what exactly
I make a
does
lot of
Jeremy make?
That was a great transition,
Wasn't it? Well,
Jamie.
well, you know what? He really set me up. He said the word make like 8 times in the last 45 seconds.
Okay.
So I'm just running with it. Jeremy,
Almost.
what do you make?
I make stuff. I do a fair. I wish I did a little bit more. I wish I had a little more time to do it, but I do some woodworking. I'm working on some plastic repurposing as well, but I like to take, raw materials, make them into something purposeful, and just making stuff, using your hands and taking something, creating something useful out of it is a lot of fun to me.
I think I saw a how do you say it?
Charcuterie.
Trickery board?
Charcuterie
board?
Yeah. Something like
Charcuterie
that.
board.
Yeah.
What is it called?
It's a charcuterie board.
I do
Say
not
it.
believe you at all. Jeremy, what is it called?
Charcuterie board, but
Thank you.
when it's past midnight, it's a charcuterie board.
Charcuterie board.
Depending on what's served on it.
Right. Exactly.
Well, right now it's technically past midnight, yes?
It's always past midnight.
Right.
It's 5 o'clock
Same.
somewhere.
It's always past midnight
Break
somewhere.
it open.
There's always a yesterday.
There's always, that's true. Man, there's always a tomorrow as well.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, it's
we
like
don't know
it's
that.
tomorrow in China, right? It's
Yeah,
already
but-
tomorrow. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but
It's-
we're not living it.
But eventually, when you get what it's called, the meridian,
Are we though?
It's no longer. There's no longer a
But are
tomorrow.
we? What do you mean? There's no longer tomorrow?
He's saying
Come on.
the whole episode's been about death. Have you not caught on to that yet? Jeez. It's fine.
There's also a lot of
Have
psychotic
some more caffeine.
people.
You've got a rock
and-
star. You've got coffee. Did I just call you out? Sorry, Joe. Don't listen to this. He doesn't drink Rockstar. I promise.
You can't prove it. Let's let our guest talk. Erin, you're hogging the microphone.
I just like to be the center of attention. Yeah. Well, and I've seen your stuff. As I said at the beginning of the episode, it's beautiful. I've seen it. I've
good.
seen your cutting boards, which are really cool, both with and without the meat gutter, the blood gutter thing that you've got going on. Which we have a really cool cutting board that I might give to you and ask you to put
It's called a juice groove.
a blood
most
gutter
commonly,
into
but a blood
it.
gutter works
What
well.
do they call it when you're doing the embalming? What do they? It's the same type of thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the
There's a-
same type of
Do
thing.
they call it
you
a
lay
juice
the body
groove in
there.
embalming?
They
is-
don't. But
Then
that-
is it blood gutter? No.
more appropriately a blood gutter?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
In that
Yeah.
circumstance.
Because
How do you
we
dispose
cut
of
up
all that
the
extra
juicy, mostly pork when it's super juicy,
Mm-hmm.
and it just starts flowing off. And I'm like, dang it, we need a blood gutter. Don't look at me like that. Yeah.
So,
Charcuterie.
Charcuterie,
what else do you make, Jeremy?
lamps,
Cutting
and
boards. I see your
clocks.
cutting boards.
Cutting boards are fun.
Oh,
you
I
can get
saw
pretty
the
creative
clocks.
with patterns and
A
things.
laser
so
cutter, a laser deal.
I don't have any laser cutter or anything like that. That's maybe a
Do
future.
you see I tagged you
investment.
in a laser engraver
You did,
thingy?
yeah.
Yes.
Oh, he
Up-
whittles
up for
it.
purchase.
He whittles wood by hand, probably. I don't know. How do you make that stuff? Seriously.
I do have some chisels, but
Yeah.
that's only when it comes to like really fine detail finish
Hmm.
work, essentially, or if you just have a tool that can't make the right shape or get into a little crevice. But all you really need is a couple saws and some wood and maybe some glue.
I saw.
I don't know about that. He makes it sound so simple. His work is really good.
I
The
saw
process
a-
itself is pretty simple, but it takes time to build the skill to make it look presentable in the end.
Yeah.
The
Right.
finished product.
Well, it's like the people say, right? You're not paying me for the 10 minutes it took me to do the job. You're paying me for the 10 years it took me to learn how to do it for that, and it only took 10 minutes, right? So it's the skill behind there. I saw a really, really cool table made out of old skateboards. So this person took all these old skateboards. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to save up a bunch of skateboards and hand them to you and say, make me something, Jeremy. I
Deal.
think that would be rad. It was like super colorful. It was almost like a rainbow. Have you seen it?
I have. There's an account on social media I follow where they collect old retired skateboards,
Yeah.
and they
Wow,
glue them
that's
all up
cool.
together and make panels out of them, and they build all sorts of things out of it. It's really neat
Wow.
because the board, they are made in all sorts of different colors, so it makes really beautiful finished products.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Do you do live edge stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What-
Okay.
What's live edge?
Live edge is basically it's unmilled on the edges. So if you were to take a tree and just
Oh.
cut it linearly
Yeah.
up and down, the edges where the bark is,
Yeah.
that's what you got.
Oh, okay.
And do you go out and source that piece of wood for your clients, or do the clients bring you the piece of wood, or is it kind of combo of both?
I go and buy it usually from the store.
Because I know there's a guy at the Gresham Farmers Market that sells those live edge slabs of wood for actually a really reasonable price.
Yeah.
Live edge, for a lot of people, the aesthetic of it is brilliant if you do it correctly. But live edge can be lower in cost in some circumstances because there's less milling involved. You don't have to cut the edges and smooth it all down. You just kind of sand it and let it as it naturally is.
Right. That's
Can,
very cool.
can people buy your stuff online? Do you take online orders, or do you just basically do local here? Like if some of our viewers said, "Hey," and they checked out your website and says, "We want some of these," or whatever, if you have a website, do you do that, or is this more just hobbyist, kind of just local?
Mostly hobby, yeah. It's a passion project. It's not
Yeah.
an income maker by any means.
Gotcha.
Whatever money I do make out of it, I just reinvest into more materials and to improve my tools at this point. But yeah, if I don't have a website or anything. But if
Yeah.
anybody wanted to buy something, they could find me on social media. My Instagram probably is the easiest
Yeah.
way to reach me. Just
Okay.
JB_makes things.
Can we put that in the show notes below?
Sure, absolutely.
We can do that,
Remind
right?
me to do that
Can we do
because
that?
I will forget.
What people
Yes,
like
we
the
can
most.
Well, we
absolutely
forget a
do
lot. I
that.
forgot to press record, so I'll never hear the end of that.
What people most, what I've seen return customers and what I've sold the most of is my cocktail smokers, which is just a really at-home fun thing for people who like to enjoy a beverage of any type.
Yeah.
Just kind of an at-home product that you can give a little smoky flavor to anything that you're drinking or eating.
Can you explain that to our viewers? Because he did this at Chamber. Were you at the Chamber where he laid it out? We were at the arts, the Center for the Arts, big
The theater.
room, and was it the theater?
Yep.
And he lined it up, man. And I'll tell you what. That
So I
was
haven't
good.
seen that display, but I did see
So
him
good.
at the SDF Collective's Halloween party doing it. I saw a video of him at the My Father's House wine gala that they
Uncorked,
have.
yeah.
Uncorked, thank you. And then I won one of them.
What?
So I have one at home.
So you have
And
to bring
lo-
it next time.
Mike loves using them. You know, he likes the smoky flavor in his
Yeah.
whiskey. So yeah, he really likes it.
Yeah. I'd like an old fashioned that way.
Yeah, absolutely. With like just the twist of the orange peel in there. And
Yeah. Can you tell everybody what that is? What we're talking about, that smoky thing that you do?
Yeah, it's a pretty simple concept actually. It's just a little wood apparatus. It's got a hole in it. It's got a screen. It's actually just a tobacco pipe screen, so that the wood chips don't fall in the drink. But you take some wood shavings, which I also provide, and if they want, or they can use smoke chips from a different place and put it in there. You take a kitchen torch and you go right on top of it, over the top of the glass, and the smoke falls down and infuses with whatever you're enjoying, and it just adds that smoky flavor, so you can experiment with like maple flavor, hickory flavor, oak flavor.
So you could get real fancy at
Yeah.
your
Oh,
house. I mean, the price of drinks now at bars, holy cow.
geez.
Price of everything now. I mean, let's just
I
be
know.
real. I don't want to pick on the bar industry, but
Wanna talk
prices
politics?
of everything. Do I want to talk politics? Do you want to talk politics?
You don't want to talk politics. I'm just kidding. Let's stay on task, Erin.
What I wish, this is what I wish, okay? We're just going to go there real quick.
No.
Instead of worrying about TikTok Can we go solve something else?
How about the homeless problem
Fully
in
on
America with
board.
veterans?
Right? I mean, if you took a vote of the people, do you want us to worry about TikTok and your information going to China, which, let's be real, everything I have is a smart device made in China. So do we want you to worry about that, or do we want you to worry about mental health, feeding the homeless, our school system,
or
Not having to go in debt to get a kidney stone removed.
yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Pick
Here's a
any of
better
those.
idea, guys.
Or diabetes, right? Not going into debt because you need your insulin. Holy cow.
I
That's
think
been
the answer is
mostly fixed. But
I think the answer
So
to both of
crazy.
your issues here,
Yeah.
we should continue to send billions to Ukraine so that we can continue to neglect our people here. That's what we should keep doing. Let's just look.
We digress.
I know.
And we digress.
And we
We said our
digress.
piece.
You know what? I always love having guests on this show. I love it. He's only the second guest, but I love having guests on
It
this
is.
show because
Well, we have some lined up that'll be here, so that's cool.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah,
I'm so
coming down-
excited.
coming down the pipeline.
Yeah,
Can't tell you what we're going to talk about because we don't even know.
because we have no what?
Direction.
Direction. That's not just a name. We really don't.
Well,
we really don't.
Jeremy, we always ask our guests if there's anything else you would like to share
Yeah.
about anything, any topic that we didn't talk about. We really don't care how long our episodes are. Either people are going to listen or they're not. So
No, it's been fun.
Yeah.
You asked lots of good questions. I gave the best answers I could from what I experienced.
we're very curious.
I apologize for her.
Thank your local morticians. They do good work.
Yeah, wow.
Yes,
I didn't
yes.
realize there was so much.
They do good work.
Oh, I was going to mention one of my favorite movies growing up was My Girl. Have you ever seen My Girl? Have you ever seen it?
Is that
It
a chick
has-
flick?
No.
No, I don't think so.
Who's this
It has
little blonde
Macaulay.
girl?
It has Macaulay Culkin in it. So
Yeah,
he
I've seen that.
So spoiler alert,
Yeah, long time ago.
but I'm not sorry because the movie came out forever ago.
haven't seen it by
but
now.
Macaulay Culkin dies. He gets a bee sting and he dies. But his best friend grows up in a house that has a what do you call it underneath? What do you?
It's a prep room. Yeah. It's like
a prep room.
At-home
So-
mortuary.
Yeah. An at-home so they have funerals and things there.
At
So she's
home mortuary?
well, so it's
a
a
lot of
funeral
it yourself?
home that they live in.
Yeah.
So they live there. So
okay.
so
Which is
all
incredibly common, by the way.
Is it really?
Yeah. There's
Yes.
living quarters in a lot of funeral homes in the United States of America, at least I can speak for.
They're on call 24/7. Is that probably why? Or they just like to go downstairs and do their work as opposed to travel?
Well, there's a few different reasons for it. Historically,
Yeah.
people wanted the person to be in a comfortable environment, so there was often in like the living room, ironically named, was usually a space where the person would be
was
laid
good.
out for
That was
viewing
good.
or anything like that.
Yeah.
But oftentimes, yes,
Yeah.
as when I was sometimes on call every other day for
Yeah.
24 hours, I would have to
Jeez.
take my phone in the bathroom when I took a shower in case it rang and someone died and a family needed me to go at 2 a.m. or something like that.
yeah,
And-
because you can't not answer your phone in
Right.
those situations, right? Yeah.
So a lot of and then there's also apprentices. There's an apprenticeship program in just about every state that I can think of. So a lot of times instead of paying an apprentice, because funeral homes, they may charge a decent amount of money sometimes, but it's not a money-making machine by any means. So they would offer lodging essentially for like an apprentice or something like that. So there's usually an
Interesting.
apartment or living quarters at funeral homes for people to stay in.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So they live. She grew up living in this home that is also a funeral home with the prep area downstairs, and she's scared to go downstairs, and it's there's a lot of stuff surrounding our uncomfortableness with death, and then her best friend dies, and her father is the one that is in charge of taking care of him after death.
Played by Dan Aykroyd, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a not funny role.
Yeah, a not funny, very serious role, and yeah, so just how she deals with that, and it just it hits you hard. That's a movie I did not like. My Girl 2. That movie was, I don't even know if you watched it. It was so dumb.
My Girl, though, definitely recommended reading for any.
It was a book?
Morticians. Watching.
Watching, okay. Watching. Right. I mean, I usually watch books anyways. So, so anyways, it was very cool. Highly recommend that you watch it.
So I solved the riddle that we had earlier. Candyman, the actor's name is William Bloodworth.
No way.
You got it. You can't write this stuff. He was Candyman, right?
Yeah,
he was also the mortician on Final Destination.
Yes.
And Final Destination
he's been in a lot of things.
And Final Destination 5.
Yeah, he's been in a lot of things. Look at the other things he's been in. He's been in some.
Look at this guy.
Yeah.
Dude, look at this guy.
I don't know if people can't see him.
It's an iconic face.
It is. Yeah.
That is, I mean, no offense, sir, but that's not a guy you want to see in a dark alley.
No. He's just inappropriate. He's so inappropriate. All right. Well, should we say goodbye then? We should say goodbye. Jamie, say goodbye.
Bye, Jeremy. Jeremy,
goodbye.
It's been a pleasure to have you on this podcast, Jeremy. Hey, we'll see you guys next time right here on the No Direction podcast. Erin, you want to say goodbye to your camera there?
Yes, I will look at the correct camera. Goodbye. Don't forget to like, follow, all the things, and share with your friends, because the more people who like, follow, listen, give us 5 stars, the wider audience we get, and we can share all this nonsense with everybody. And thank you again to Jeremy for being here. We really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me on. It was a blast.
Great.
We're out.
Bye.
Bye.